ओम सदाशिवसमारम्भां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। We were looking at the human pursuits, which is called Purushartha. Purushena arthyate iti Purushartha. That which is sought after or pursued by Purushaha here can be taken as a person rather than a man. So that which is pursued or sought after by human beings in general is called Purushartha. In this, we share the pursuits of security and pleasure with animals also. Animals also pursue these things. And we saw that when we are actually pursuing security, what we are actually pursuing, we have to understand. Why do we even pursue security? Because we think I am insecure. I am insecure is the problem centered on myself. But I am trying to find the solution in external things by accumulating wealth, by accumulating power, by having status in the society. Like this, you are trying to get many different things which are all mine. But the problem is in I. Of course, whatever is mine also brings a certain well-being in you. Therefore, you are seeking that. But it's not going to change fundamentally who you are, correct? You are still the same insecure person who is having a lot of security, you can say. In fact, the person who has 100 people guarding him, will you call him secure or insecure? In fact, that person is really very insecure, correct? The person who is actually having a lot of security is actually an insecure person. He is not secure. Because of so much insecurity only, that person has to have so much security around him or her. And having security like this is like having a crutch. That's what we saw. If you are not able to be secure on your own feet, of course you require a crutch. Nothing wrong in that. But just upgrading the crutch itself into better crutches is not the solution, correct? It's not going to address your fundamental problem of being secure on your legs. You can go on improving the crutch. That's not going to solve your actual problem. Similarly, you can go on accumulating artha in different forms. It's not going to solve your fundamental problem. That is something we have to understand. In fact, we have to go one more level and understand that even while seeking artha, what I am really seeking is freedom from insecurity. Freedom from insecurity is the fundamental pursuit. That is expressing itself in the form of pursuit of security. If you understand that, then you will understand that you are really seeking only freedom from insecurity and not security itself. Security is only you can say intermediate. It can be there because it is giving you a certain well-being. We cannot deny that. But really what you want or what you are seeking is freedom from insecurity. And this freedom is what is called as moksha. So what we have to understand is, even while seeking security, what I am seeking is freedom, which is moksha. Through artha also, we are seeking only moksha, really. But you may not discern it. In fact, 99% of the people do not discern it. But as a student of Vedanta, you have to discern it. You have to analyze and understand it clearly. Because what does Vedanta give you? Vedanta is giving you freedom, in fact. So whatever you are seeking, if it is really only freedom, that is what Vedanta is giving you. So your pursuit of Vedanta or even attending this class will become meaningful only if you recognize this fact. Let us also consider pleasure, kama. So artha is one purushartha, kama also is another purushartha. Again, why do I even seek kama? Because whatever you are seeking is invoking a pleased you. It is for yourself only. Understand that. You may say that I love you so much to somebody else. Even that love of the other is because the other is invoking a please to you. What you are really loving is your pleased self only. If that same person does not invoke a pleased you, you are ready to allow that person, correct? From love, you allow that person to go away. Love becomes allow. In fact, this is said very clearly in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavat. Everything you love, everything is pleasing to you. Why? Because it pleases you. Because of the desire for seeing a pleased you only, everything else also is pleasing to you because those objects invoke that please to you. That is the thing we have to understand. Here, when we seek pleasure, we also saw that the object itself is only incidental. And the same object does not give you the same pleasure. Today, first time it may give you a lot of pleasure, then there is a law of diminishing returns, it will set in. The 10th time it is not the same thing. Or whatever object gives you pleasure does not give you pleasure to somebody else. The other person may in fact have jealousy or envy looking at you enjoying something. So happiness or joy itself is not a quality of any particular object. The same object may give you pleasure today, it may not give you pleasure tomorrow, and it does not give the same pleasure to everybody else. So it's not a quality of the object itself. If happiness is an object or a substance or a quality, you can go and easily buy it from the market, correct? In kgs, you can buy and keep. But that's not the case. Why? Because the object is only incidental, as I told you. What is then is this pursuit of happiness or pleasure? It's nothing but invoking the please to you. That means you are the source of your happiness. And when do we feel happy? Because objects also give you a feeling of well-being. That's why you go after that, correct? Because it invokes the please to you. That means you are the source of your own happiness. All happiness, in fact, is from you only. And it manifests when you do not look upon yourself as a wanting person. We saw that we are highly self-conscious, self-aware. we are able to look at ourselves and make a judgment, self-judgment. In my own judgment, I am not acceptable to myself, because when I look at myself, I am limited in all the ways, whether it is in terms of knowledge, whether it is in terms of the ability to enjoy something, whether it is in terms of space, in terms of time. Mortality is a big problem for everybody. Assuming that you have achieved everything you have to achieve in this life, you are quite happy, fine, you have a lot of security, you have money, you have fame, you have power, you have health, which is very important in fact, but still you are going to age, and then death will come. So how are you going to handle that? You are limited with reference to space and time. You are limited with reference to space also. You can only enjoy one thing at one place. How nice it will be if I can be at 100, or I don't know, countless other places enjoying countless different things. Won't it be nice? You can imagine that. So I am limited by space and time, and I'm very much aware about that. So even if you have all the security and all the pleasure, this problem is not going to go away, because the body itself, it has all this we call Shad Bhava Vikara, correct? It has six-fold modifications or changes. Body is born, asti, correct? It is there, it is born. Jayate, asti, or asti jayate. Then vardhate, it grows. Viparinamate, the body, you become an adult, correct? That means there's a certain metamorphosis is there. Then apakshiyate. So maybe up to 30, you are eating food, you are growing. So in our tradition, we say after 30, the food is eating you. You are not eating food anymore. So you have to be very careful about what you eat. Up to 30, you can eat anything, and you are growing. And then it's all decline. The senses are declining. The abilities of the body also declines. Then disease also can be there. Then vinashyati, death also is there, body is gone. So as long as you are taking yourself as this body, your death you cannot prevent. Maybe in fact nowadays, some futurists, these people are saying that even in our own lifetime, the number of years a person can live can increase substantially. Already it has increased. In 20th century itself, the life expectancy has gone up everywhere, all over the world. And they say that people can easily live up to 150 years and all that. But I don't know what they are going to do really. See, many times you see there are people, once you become old, what happens? Initially you wanted to live a lot. Now you are expecting death. At least I have to die peacefully. I should not have any disease. In fact, there is even a prayer in our tradition, correct? Anayasena maranam vina dainyena jeevitam dehime kripaya shambho. Like that, you ask Shambhu, Shiva, hey, give me anayasena maranam, give me death, which is very easy, correct? Without any ayasa, without any struggle, I have to pass on. And also while living also vina dainyena, without any weakness, I have to live. You give me that Shambhu. I have bhakti towards you. I have devotion. Achanchalam bhakti also you give so that I can do your aradhana and you give me this. Like this, after a certain age, your prayers also change. I don't know then what people are going to do if they live for 150 years. After a certain age, unless you have certain emotional maturity, even life itself can become a drag. It can become a problem. Anyway, one is limited by space and time, and one is limited in so many other ways, whatever way you look at yourself. And that is the reason for you to have this dissatisfaction with yourself. You are you are not acceptable to yourself. So our fundamental problem is one of self non-acceptance. And that self non-acceptance only is driving you towards all this artha and kama. But what we have to really understand is, while seeking artha and kama, what we are really seeking is freedom from insecurity, freedom from being subjected to displeasure, freedom from being a wanting person, in fact. Because whenever you are a wanting person, you do not have happiness. So, how do we get pleasure, happiness? Momentarily, you do not look upon yourself as a wanting person. Then you can be happy. You can feel happy really. Even a simple joke you hear and then you laugh heartily. At that time, you have not repaid your loans. All your problematic relationships have not been resolved. Nothing has changed, but still you can laugh heartily and enjoy. It can be a slapstick joke or some Charlie Chaplin movie you are watching, or even Tom and Jerry, or Laurel and Hardy. All these things we used to watch as children and enjoy. Even now you can enjoy. So while enjoying that, you do not look upon yourself as a wanting person. And again, anyway, you will look upon yourself as a wanting person means that whatever happiness also is gone. It lasted for some time. It comes, it goes. So it's not a permanent solution. So this Arthakama pursuit in reality is a pursuit for moksha. This is something you have to recognize. Fundamentally, I am really seeking freedom from insecurity, freedom from being subjected to sorrow, displeasure, being a wanting person. Now, this pursuit is not only about things which are there here in this life. So when we look at the Purushartha as a categorization, one more category also is there, which is what we call dharma. So when we talk about dharma as a Purushartha, as something being sought after by human beings, the meaning we give is punya. Really, what we are seeking is punya. Dharma means punya, adharma means papa. In this context, the word dharma means punya when we are talking about purushartha. So, what is this punya then? This is something unique to our tradition. Because arthakama, all of us understand, we share it with animals also, I said, because it is something which we are seeking in this world. But what about punya? Gaining punya, avoiding papa. That also is a pursuit. And how do we understand that? Punya papa or punya you are seeking basically for hereafter. While being here, Artha Kama. Hereafter also, I want to go to Swarga. I want to enjoy. In fact, different people are giving you different descriptions of Swarga according to their own ideas. Desert theologies give Swarga as place where you have garden. They are lacking all these things, correct? They say there a nice green garden is there. Then there are rivers of wine. You can enjoy that. Like that, they have their own some description. You don't have to go into that. It's very funny, in fact, if you read that. Veda also talks about Swarga. You can go and enjoy. In fact, in Swarga, there is no childhood and all that. You are born as an adult. All the problems of human being are because they are all mostly picked up in childhood, correct? Even as an adult, whatever problems you have, emotional problems, psychological issues, all of them can be traced to childhood. So Swarga is a place there is no childhood. There are no childhood problems. There are no growing up pangs. You go there, depending on your punya, you can enjoy. In fact, you don't even have to consume anything to enjoy. Devaha, they are called Paroksha Priyaha Devaha. It is there in an Upanishad itself, it is there. Aitreya Upanishad, it says, Devas are all Paroksha Priya. Means they can indirectly enjoy. They don't have to consume anything. You just see something and you can enjoy. That is the beauty of being a Deva. And you will be there in the Deva Loka. Different lokas are there. There also there is Taratamyam is there. Understand? There is gradations are there. Because there is a Deva Raja. Devendra is there. Indra is there. He is the king. So you have to, you are a subject of Devendra. In fact, Indra also has Brihaspati, his guru. So Indra also has to respect his guru. There also there is a hierarchy. And within Devas also, in fact, if you read our Taittiriya Upanishad, there are many types of Devas are there. Karma Deva, Ajan Ajanan Deva, but Gandharvas, Deva Gandharvas, like that there are different types. And whatever they enjoy, also their enjoyment also is graded. So even if we go to Swarga as per the Veda, of course you will enjoy more than what you can enjoy as a human being, but there is a gradation there also. So you may still feel, somebody else, another Deva is better than me, he is enjoying more than me. All these things, these problems will not go away, I think. Comparing yourself with others. This is a problem here also. So as a human being, one of the biggest issue is what? You compare yourself with others and feel bad. Whatever you may have now, immaterial of that. In fact, others also contribute to that. They come and compare. They tell you, see that person, you both started from the same school. Now see where he is. He's become the CEO of some multinational. You are sitting in Kalidai Kurichi. Correct? Your parents may even start that. That is a bigger problem, in fact. Same thing continues in Swarga also. Because there is Taratamyam, there are gradations, hierarchy. So Veda says that, and in fact it says one more very, very important thing. Whatever punya you have accumulated, once it is over, Chine punye martya lokam vishanti, you have to come back. So this pursuit of punya itself is a very Vedic pursuit. because Punya itself is revealed to us only by the Veda. Understand that. So according to us, every action which you do has two results, not just one result. Every action we do, it has two results. What are these two results? One is Drishta Phala. We say immediately whatever result you are experiencing directly. In fact, all of us do some karma expecting some result only, correct? The karma itself is defined or determined by whatever result you are expecting. Prayojanam anuddishya mandopi na pravartate. Like this, there is a saying. Even Bhashyakara says that, I think, somewhere in the, or Shankara, Adi Shankara says that. Without expecting a result, even a dull person, mandaha, na pravartate, does not engage in action. So your action is defined or determined by the result which you are expecting. That is why some people say karma yoga, do action without expecting any result. I don't know what kind of teaching it is. How can you do any action without expecting result? If the if the action itself is defined by result, how can you not expect the result? That's not karma yoga. We'll see later what is karma yoga anyway. So without expecting result, nobody can do action. And whatever result you get and you experience directly, that is called drishta phalam. Drishtam means seen, experienced. But then we say there is one more phalam also, you get one more result of your action. That is called adrishta phalam. Adrishta means unseen. You cannot see that. In fact, adrishta is wrongly translated as luck in English. Adrishta is not luck. Adrishta is really unseen. It is there in all Indian languages also. Even in Tamil, we have the word adrishta. I think even Telugu and other languages, Indian languages, we have this word. And it is not luck, because luck means it is totally chance. But here it is your own action which is creating this adrishta. But the only thing is it is unseen. And this adrishta is what we call punya and papa. So whenever whatever you do is right in the given situation, you gain punya. And whatever you do is wrong, you do something wrong, not only you get drishta phala for that, but you get adrishta, which is papa. So whenever you are acting, you are also accumulating punya and papa, depending on whether you have done something right and or whether you have done something wrong. Then how do we decide what is right and what is wrong? Because one of the defense of anybody who does something wrong is what? I did not know it is right or wrong. But ignorance is never a defense. Understand that. Nobody can say I did not know the law, therefore I did something illegal. You go to the judge in the court and say I did not know your law. In fact, the judge may give you punishment for not knowing the law also then, additionally. Ignorance is not a defense even in a court of law. Here also ignorance is not a defense. Understand that. Nobody can claim I do not know what is right or wrong. Why? Because Bhagavan has already given you that knowledge. Everybody commonly senses certain things. It's a common sense. It is what we call universal value or samanya dharma. What is this samanya dharma? I know how everybody should behave towards me. In fact, I am 100% dharmic with reference to others' behavior towards myself. Others should only tell the truth to me. They have to behave very pleasingly towards me. They should not hurt me. They should help me whenever I am in trouble. So in all these things, we are very clear about how others should behave with reference to me. Correct? There's no doubt about that. Then what about my behavior towards others? Then that becomes a problem. Why? Why should my behavior towards others become a problem? It becomes a problem because of my own likes and dislikes. Understand that. All of us have likes and dislikes. In fact, that's what defines us as a person. Every individual has a certain personality, we say, correct? What is this personality? Your personality is defined by your own likes and your own dislikes. Personally, we all have that. And having likes and dislikes is not a problem again, let me tell you, because again, many many spiritual gurus tell you that you should not have any desire. Okay, you should not have any desire. Then how are you going to live as a person? All of us have desires. In fact, desire is a shakti. It's ichha shakti. Desire itself is not a problem. Understand that. In fact, it's a privilege which is given to us, the ability to desire. Only you can desire to attend a Vedanta class, correct? A cow or a dog cannot attend Vedanta class. You can desire for iPhone. Cow has no way to desire for iPhone or iPad or whatever, all the latest gadget. You can desire for a candlelight dinner in a Chinese restaurant. A cow has no way to desire for that. Whatever it eats is pretty much programmed or whatever it is used to, correct? We can desire for the moon. We can desire to go to some other planet and all that, correct? Now space adventures also have started for even normal people. Maybe in another few years, space tourism will start. So you can literally desire for the moon. That is because it is Ichha Shakti. We have the power. It has been given to us by Bhagavan, in fact. Not only given to us, Bhagavan says, I am there in you in the form of your desire. If you take the 7th chapter in Gita, Dharma Aviruddha Kamosmi Bharatarshabha, like in Bhagavan says. He says, I am the desire in you, but it is Dharma Aviruddha. He adds one adjective there, very, very important adjective. All your desires which are not opposed to Dharma, which are in keeping with Dharma, all those desires are me, he says. I am all your righteous desires. You can say that. So Bhagavan only is expressing through you in the form of desire. In fact, desiring for moksha itself is a desire, correct? Mumuksha, we say. As a student of Vedanta, you are supposed to desire for moksha. Then only you are really a student of Vedanta. First, you have to be a mumukshu. That is the first criteria or qualification for a student of Vedanta. So desire is not a problem. Desire is a privilege. It can become a problem. That's a different thing, correct? Any power can become a problem if you misuse it or disuse it. The power itself is not the problem. It is how you use it. So we have desire, Ichha Shakti. That's not a problem. But when it becomes a problem, when your likes and dislikes are not in keeping with what is right and what is wrong, All human conflict is only this. Understand this. In Bhagavad Gita also, human psychology is looked upon in a very simple manner. What is that? We are all subjected to likes and dislikes. Of course, personal likes and dislikes everybody has. Everybody should have. Nothing wrong. It also depends upon your childhood, how you have been brought up, where you have been brought up. I am brought up in Tamil Nadu. I like idli dosa, curd rice. Without that, my meal is not complete. Breakfast, we have idli dosa. With every meal, we have curd rice. You may not like it. You are from Bengal. You are from Punjab. Your preferences, food preferences are different. Likes and dislikes are different. Fine. That's not a problem really. But when does it become a problem? When your likes and what is right is same. You are spontaneously dharmic. There is no conflict in you. You are happy, in fact. Similarly, when your dislike and what is wrong is aligned, again you are spontaneously dharmic. You have no problem avoiding certain things. Then where is the problem? All human problems are because what you like is either illegal, immoral, or calorific. Someone said that, okay, it's not my own statement, but somebody said that whatever I like is either illegal, immoral, or calorific. That is the problem. Whatever you like, if it is wrong, and don't say that you do not know it is wrong. All of us commonly sense certain values. I already told you. You can derive the values like ahimsa, non-violence, satyam, truthfulness. Like that, universal values, we all have a common matrix of values that we are all sensing. That's what we call conscience also, correct? In Tamil we say manasakshi. In English we call it conscience. In fact, in many movies we see an interesting scene, correct? Sometimes the hero or heroine is in confusion, dilemma, what to do. Then they will show that the conscience will go separately from one's body, like a ghost. Then it will say, no, don't do this. You are not supposed to do. But then this person is still conflicted. I want to do something. Correct? Conscience is there for all of us. And it is telling you what is right, what is wrong. Or you can still say, no, no, I'm still confused. I don't know what is right or wrong. Okay. But as a human being, you have a responsibility to know what is right or wrong. So again, it's not a defense. Understand that. If you are confused, fine. That is what we call dharma sankata. One can be in dharma sankata, a situation which is complex. There seems to be many rights and many wrongs also. Sometimes that is a problem. How do we choose? Right itself, there are many things which looks like right. That's a human problem again. We'll come to that. But between right and wrong also, if you are confused, you have a responsibility to get it clarified. You have to go and ask either your guru or elders in your family or anybody who has the general good in their mind. Okay, they will not advise because they themselves are getting some benefit. That will be conflict of interest, correct? In fact, the Veda itself says this. I am not telling you this. ये तत्र ब्राह्मणाः सम्मर्षिणः युक्ता युक्ताः अलुक्षा धर्मकामाः स्युः. So dharma kamaha, those who are interested in establishing dharma and not about their own benefit or anything. You have to seek advice from such people. So whenever you are confused also, you have to get it clarified. That responsibility is with you. So you know what is right, what is wrong in a situation. But the conflict is whatever is right is not in keeping with your likes and dislikes. So what will you do now? That is the conflict of all human beings. That is the basic conflict in human life. And the current trend is what? How do you define success? Success is wrongly defined as fulfilling your likes and dislikes. Understand that. That is the biggest problem. In fact, parents also contribute to this, because whatever your child likes, okay, you give it. Whether it is good or bad for the child's health or even child's mental health also. Many parents don't think about all that. They just say, okay, I did not have all these things when I was a child. So I don't want to deny anything to my child. So I'll keep on giving. Even before my child asks, I'll give. But what is the problem? Problem is, if you are used to that, then you think that fulfilling your likes and dislikes is success. If you have that as a yardstick, nobody can be successful in this world. Understand that. Even the most successful person, if you take an audit of all that person's likes and dislikes, majority of the likes wouldn't have been fulfilled. So everybody is a failure. If you take fulfilling your likes and dislikes as a criteria, and say, you can think about yourself from your childhood, how many likes and dislikes you had, how many got fulfilled. You are a failure, miserable failure. But that is the problem, correct? That's how people are made to think nowadays. But what is our tradition? In our tradition, fulfilling your likes and dislikes is not success. Success is managing your likes and dislikes. If you are able to manage your likes and dislikes, then you are a successful person. And how do we manage our likes and dislikes? By doing the right thing. In spite of your likes and dislikes, if you are able to do the right thing and avoid the wrong thing, then you are managing your likes and dislikes successfully. You are a successful person then. So what is real freedom according to us? Real freedom is not doing according to whatever you like. That is like driving on the road without any concern for anybody, correct? If you are driving on the road, then there are rules. And who is a successful driver on the road? One who follows all the rules and even accommodates for others not following the rules sometimes, correct? You have to accommodate that also. You can't do anything. Not because everybody has power. You sit behind the steering, you just press the accelerator, you can do whatever you want. But who is a successful driver? One who drives according to the rules of the road. You may want to go at 100 miles, but 65 miles is the speed limit. What do you do? So, like that, you have to do the right thing. In fact, you are free enough to do the right thing. That is real freedom, correct? Even at an individual level, what is freedom? Bhagavan has given you free will, correct? That means you are free to use your whatever the Shakti you have. You are free to abuse or disuse also. That is real freedom, and it has been given to us. So we can abuse our free will. We can use our free will. When do you abuse your free will? You are abusing your free will if you just go by your likes and dislikes. irrespective of what is right and wrong. Desire itself is not a problem, I told you, as long as you are going according to what is right and what is wrong. Dharma aviruddha kamaha is not a problem. It is in fact an expression of Bhagavan. So when do we have a problem? To fulfill your desire, if you are ready to do something wrong. Ambition is not a problem if you are doing it dharmically. Depending on who you are, your ambitions can be big. Correct? A billionaire cannot desire for something small. Billionaires have to define their ambition, may be very different from a normal person's ambition. Nothing wrong, as long as you are ready to do it properly. Desire and ambition itself is not an issue, but when you are ready to do something wrong for that purpose, adharma, then it becomes greed. Then only it is a problem. Correct? If you are ready to do something wrong for fulfilling your likes and dislikes, and when do you do that? Or when you become like that, when you think that without fulfilling a particular likes or a dislike, you cannot be happy. That is what we call kama. Kama itself, when does it become a problem? When it becomes binding. A binding desire is a problem. Desire itself is not a problem. Binding desires are our problem. Because you think that if I don't have something, I cannot be happy. If I don't get rid of something, also I cannot be happy. Both these things are the issue. And then after some time, you become ready to do anything, any wrong, right or wrong, whatever, to get something or get rid of something. That leads to all kinds of problems for human beings. So that is our problem on a day-to-day basis. And unless we analyze all this and try to come to a certain understanding, this will continue. So we have to do the right thing in a particular situation in spite of our likes and dislikes. Then you are a mature person. Emotionally, you are mature. Because child is one who throws all tantrums, correct? Child only knows that I like something, I want something. At a child level, it doesn't appreciate others, even their egos. It has an ego, it has discovered an ego. Then child thinks that only it has ego. It doesn't understand that others also have egos. Others have their own likes and dislikes. For it to appreciate that, it takes some time. But even after understanding all that, if you only want to fulfill your own likes and dislikes, you are still a child. You don't become an adult. Just by growing physically, you are not an adult. When do you become an adult? When you are able to do the right thing in spite of whatever is your likes and dislikes. That means you are growing up. You are becoming an adult. So that is the important thing here. So we all have a common matrix of values. Universal values are there. There are specific values are also there. That is what we call Vishesha Dharma. There is Samanya Dharma, Vishesha Dharma. About this Vishesha Dharma and further about our pursuit of Dharma itself, we'll see next week. In the meantime, if you have some people wanted to ask some questions, you have something, we can take it up now. Maybe I can unmute you, or I don't know. I have not muted all of you. I think so you can unmute and ask yourself whatever. Okay, I think maybe everything is clear to all of you. So we will anyway conclude then. We'll meet next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
धन्यवाद गुरुजी।
आदर्श